Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 489, and today we will be featuring Guro Josh Woods. And Guro Josh trained way back, well, early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. We'll hear from him, but under tutelage of GM Tony. And actually, he was over there in the Philippines and lived there for 8 months durations. I think the frequency was a few times with that. So he is logging in. We've been dealing with a few tech issues, but I'm just waiting him to come through. And here we go. And he is here.
Okay, good. I'm gonna get my wrist is gonna get sore from holding this phone up like
All
this.
right, we got you.
Okay. Thanks for your patience, man. It's like I say,
No
I'm on that
worries.
Starlink, and it's probably router signal coming to my patio and whatever.
I'm a pro in technical difficulties doing this for 4+ years, so
Oh gosh.
no worries about it. Really, it's not the first time, and unfortunately, it probably won't be the last. So I just did the intro, showed
Okay.
your vid there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Before we get into the meat and potatoes and all that, like, where'd you, as far as your FMA journey, where did it start? Who, where, and what style?
Well, it started through a lady in Penticton. Her name's Diana Mascarda, and she's an older like Progressive Fighting Systems instructor.
Okay.
And she has her own story, and she trained with Guro Dan, and like PF guys and PFS guys. So I got involved with her. I did JKD for a few years with her, but I was always attracted to the Eskrima component, and it started from there. And we did some branching out, and was suggested that I go to. I was going to go to the Philippines to train, so they suggested that I go to Luneta and try to find either Tupa Ricketts or Tony Diego. And at that time, you couldn't find Tony Diego because he was a bit of a phantom, right? You can't find Tony. So I ended up making contacts with Tuper and the Bakbakan Association, and they're very generous and very accommodating. And so I went over to I guess it was Las Piñas is where they live in like a district of Manila. And yeah, so it started the Illustrisimo journey started with Tuper. So I spent a few years with Tuper, like 1990, 98 and 99, 2000 or something. And then after that, I was curious to meet the other instructors in the other pillars, if you will, in Illustrissimo. So, and Tuper was a very kind, generous guy, and so he reached out, and I believe he contacted Tommy Ditang through his channels and in Binondo, and it was maybe a week or so went by, but they agreed that I could come visit the gym, and yeah, and that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. So
the journey started with Tuber, and then and Bruce, right? I've trained with Bruce when he was a little kid. Like, what a talent, man! He was just, I couldn't believe how good he was when he was a little kid.
yeah, some of the footage I've seen and Brandon showed me, it's pretty incredible. So what's funny is, though, because I was JKD through the Vunak lineage. So you were getting obviously Anasano blend. I guess one of my question is, while you were getting exposed to Anasano blend, why did she suggest Philippines as far as Rick's that? Did you express an interest as far as, like, for instance, KI? Like, how did that come about?
I think what it was is I was totally green at the time. I didn't even know what I was looking at, to be honest. I just knew that I was really passionate about blade fighting and Eskrima. For whatever reason, it resonated with me. The movements are. I'm not exactly sure at the time, but I was at a point in my life where I'd been going to art school. I'd been going to design school, and I had this artistic background, and I had been renting this cabin on this organic farm outside of this small town in Naramata, and I had a house fire, and I lost everything, like my portfolios, my computer, all of my design work. I lost everything, but at the same time, I'd been training martial arts. I've been training Eskrima, and I was getting really passionate. I was like, like, fuck this. Sorry, I'll swear a little bit. I'm like, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go travel. I'm gonna go to the Philippines. I'm just going to go like find somebody and train with. And so Diana had dropped a few suggestions. I basically just went
Okay.
on that. And I kind of inadvertently, just through fate or whatever, ended up with a really talented mentor, which is, well, first was Tuber Ricketts, and secondary was Tony Jago, and there's other, of course, Tommy DeTong, of course, and Romeo Mahakapal were serious influences as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, wow. So when you were doing the ensemble blend, like what did you see far as differences when you were exposed to KI through Bakan Bakan or in there? Like, did you see a noticeable difference right off the bat?
Yeah, right. Well, I was still pretty green. I'd only been doing FMA for 2 or 3 years, so like I had like limited knowledge. I feel like what I see with not to be not to diminish what other people are doing at all, because I appreciate everything, but I just felt like there was just gaps in everything. I was learning these movements, but no one could tell me why they were linked together. No one could tell me, okay, you're doing this because of this. And then as soon as I started going to the Philippines, it's like all the techniques, everything started to bridge, right? And then everything started to make sense.
Mm.
So yeah, I was just, yeah. So I went over there, and all of a sudden, questions that I had were being answered without even asking them. I just, gaps were being
Just
filled.
through, I got you. Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it
yeah.
just the whole thing came together. I was like, oh, I get it now. All right, I don't like I was starting to see anyway, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
No, I went
that
through a
was.
similar experience. It's ironic you mentioned that because I started out with the ensemble blend, and like you, I was green. I didn't have any compare and contrast. I just assumed way is way, and
Yeah,
then when I started seeing other systems, it was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, like this is
yeah,
different. I mean, and again, it gave me the nuts and bolts. Don't get me wrong; it was a good starting platform for me to segue from there and go and diversify myself in there. So very useful, that platform. But
absolutely.
definitely, as far as questions being answered, and through those questions being answered, I definitely was in the edge weapon lane. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. And like I was always attracted to the edge weaponry. Primarily my pre-Philippine experience was stick weapons. So I didn't really get into proper edge technique until I got into
Exactly. Yeah.
Illustrissimo, and then my eyes were like, oof,
Yeah.
And to this day, I pretty much only train edge weaponry. Like I can pull out a stick, and I like to play stick, but I pretty much only train with a blade.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah, I
So
know.
we ended up so they made the arrangement for me to go to go to the Binondo gym. So if people don't know, but the Binondo gym is a pretty famous gym.
It's
One of
like
our biggest in
it's
there.
such a notoriety, man. It's like
It's
historic.
crazy. So if you know Juan Luna Street in Binondo, it's a commercial avenue. It's in the Chinese district of Manila, and it borders Tondo. So there's a road there, or an area district, a market called Divisoria, and there's train tracks. And as soon as you cross those tracks, you're kind of into a different zone, if you will. And anyway, the gym on Juan Luna Street was just maybe like a half block, not a half block, see, two blocks down. You had to cross the river, and then you were there. But it was all walking distance. We walked it all the time. So, yeah, so I had the introduction. They're like, okay, well, like Tony's agreed to meet you.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, great. So thank you very much. So I went there that one night, and I remember it was like you can't even articulate it, man. You couldn't even make a movie about this shit. Like the way the building was set up, and the dirty staircases, and like the smell of the dirty river, and like the bugs, and like the it's absolutely it's just I got no words for it. So anyway, so point being is, I remember waiting at the top of the staircase, and you look down, and it's like it's dark and musty, and I just heard this like shh, 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 these slippers coming up the stairs, shh, shh. And Tony always wear his slippers like half on, half off. They weren't even like fully on his feet. So I saw this guy, and it's funny in hindsight, because I'm the same age as Tony when he started to train me, because Tony was 50. But I saw a guy who, living in hardship and living in those conditions he was really beat down. You know, he had a lot of impediments, he had injuries. So
That's
anyway,
sad.
and cataracts, really bad eyes. And he came up the stairs and but like just glowing and smiling. Oh, and I'll probably talk like Tony. It's the intonation. I already tell stories. I start talking like Tony. But anyway, so he's like, "Oh, nice to meet you. Oh, nice to meet you, Josh. Okay, let's come in the club. Let's sit down." So Tommy's gym is quite small. It's tiny. It's like, you know, it's maybe like 10 feet wide by 30 feet long at best, 20 feet long. So it's really tight. And so I trained there for about a week. It was 7 days. And he didn't teach me anything. All he did was sit in a stool about halfway down the space. And he would do this. You go hunch and okay, Josh, you show me what Tupper show you. You show me now. Show me what Tupper show you. Okay, but he always looked like with this look of disappointment. He always shaking his head. Oh God, no.
No.
And then, but what I noticed, but it didn't happen until later. I realized because every guy who was part of that Bonanno club at the time, every night one guy came. And I
Okay.
didn't really pick up on it till later. So every night there was a different guy for about a week. And then they'd have me doing basic things like just basic cuts and like simple footwork. But for a long time, and he would sit in the chair and he would just look at me with this face. And then they would go like this and he would start to whisper to somebody like, and then he would look at me and so what it was is they were just totally checking me out. They
They were
Tony
seeing
Tony
you
had
as you're eligible to learn.
exactly. It was a total application for employment, if
There
you
was
will.
your application.
That's it. So they, so I was there for about a week, and it was a wonderful experience. And he gave me like little tips, but we didn't really train. And at that point, because I had already trained with Tupper that year, and then so I had that week with Tony, and then every time I was in the Philippines, I would travel. So this time I had decided I was going to go north. I was going to go to Sagada, and I was just going to go through the rice terraces or whatever. I was going to maybe do a few weeks there, and then I was coming back to Manila. I was flying home, and then Tony at the end of it was like, at the last session, he was like, "Oh, where are you going? Where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna go travel now." And he's like, "Oh, okay, Josh. When you come back, you're welcome here." And he's like, when you coming back? When you coming back?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna come back like in maybe a week or so." Okay, you come here. You come here when you're back. So that's what I did. So and then I after a week of traveling, went back to Binondo, connected with Tony, and then I was supposed to fly home, and then I trained with him for 3 months, and that was kind of that was the start of it, because Tony and I ended up being like peas and carrots. We just kind of like understood each other, and his energy and my energy just kind of like melded, and and it just worked, like I just so yeah, that's kind of how
What
the
a
whole
story,
thing.
though. I mean, just like, here he is, just the stories are, it's like goosebumps, man. Like you're in this place, the way you described it, and, he's checking you out and, and asking you what you've seen. And I just think it's just so neat. What you went through here. I'm just catching up on the comments here. We got some folks, so I don't
Yeah,
neglect
that's
them. We
okay.
got
Yep.
Miguel.
Yep,
Hello,
that's fine.
guys. We got Eric, Brent Pierce, Fritz, Goon. We got, Duran. We got Ventura. And Duran is actually, that's true about how Master Tony used to wear his slippers.
That's funny.
So you're validated. But so, okay, let's just back up a bit. This is fascinating.
Sure.
When you were with Tuber for the year, like, what did he give you just solely KI, or was it kind of a mixed bag of stuff? Sagasa, Dangzhou. I mean, was it a mix
Yeah,
of?
well, Tupper was really diverse. Like Tupper Ricketts is probably one of the most talented martial arts I'd ever like witnessed. He was so good at everything. His kicks, his punches, his
I heard
eskrima.
that guy could kick it like a mule.
Oh
Yeah.
man, and Tupper. I mean, I don't like to like it's I don't use the expression, but he was a true sleeper. He would be the guy in the room who you would think would be like no problem, but he'd be your worst problem. just because he liked to eat. He was a little bit thicker, but like in fit like shape. Like don't get me wrong, a very strong individual, but no one could understand his technical ability or his flexibility. Like that guy could kick your head off. Like he was really really talented man.
That's funny you
Yeah,
mentioned that. Burton said the same thing. Burton said, man, like everything kind of you're describing, just different verbatim, different words, choice of words. But
right,
yeah,
right.
he said that guy could, his kicks were just like frightening.
Oh, like unbelievable. So we like I remember like what stood out for me because I was obviously really green when I first met Tupper. I didn't know anything about Illustrissimo, and I only know a little bit of his scream what I knew going over. And Bakbakken was very much about sparring and like full contact sparring, like right out of the gate. And I have never been that black and blue in my life. Like if that happened in Canada, like I could have gone to the police.
You would have gone filed.
No, I wouldn't have. But you would have had a case because I like from the back of my knees up to my armpits, man. Like my whole flank, my whole side, especially like my lead, my right side because I'm right-handed, would just be murdered. Like different color. I didn't even know there was those shades of
Yes.
purple and black. Like they were very very into the sparring, and it was really eye opening for me, right, to get thrown into that because you controlled sparring all the time, but then it's your first exposure to actually like okay, like go for it, right, like let's do it, and it's like wow, it was very humbling. Like I got worked.
Yeah, I heard back in the day, man. I heard it was kind of bloods, whatever you want to use to coin it, underground before there was underground or whatever. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they were like that, and like yeah, but Tupper was like as intensive an individual and as a talented of an individual he was also very like kind and soft and generous, and he invited me into his like all the training I not all but about half of the training I did was at his home, and
mm,
like they made me food and they brought me in and they picked me up and dropped me off. They're very lovely people. Like the whole Ricketts clan are very very lovely people.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
nice. That's awesome.
yeah.
And then he was gracious enough, of course, to make the connection to you to GM Tony.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And it was the premise at the time was I wanted to if I was going to get involved in illustration, I wanted to meet as many of the senior guys as possible. So I've studied with Romy Mahakapal. I mean, I've had experience with Yuli Romo. I'll hesitate to say that I studied with him, but we know each other and we've trained. Um, Robert Morales, we didn't really train a whole lot, but he was a proximity. He was kind of around that Benondo Tondo group when I was around, and so we practiced and had barbecue and whatnot. And I just wanted to expose myself to that whole environment. And I
Absolutely.
mean, I was lucky enough that they were all cordial and open minded enough to like let it happen because I mean that's not always the case, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, so that's kind of the
that's
nuts and
awesome.
bolts of
Awesome.
how
So,
how it all launched, and then but then the Tony Jago thing, it's like you see guys who are tough. You see guys you're like, wow, that guy's like really good and really strong, or like he has good technique, and it's like witnessing any good art. You can watch a good ballet, or you can watch a good pianist, or you can watch whatever it is, someone who is a master of their craft.
mm,
And then I remember being in the gym and watching Tommy and Tony move, and I'll speak firstly on among Tony. Like the first time I saw him like move really fast and like link techniques together, I thought I don't want to sound like a weirdo. I thought I was like having a religious experience because I was just like, what the fuck did I just see? Like
oh,
what
that's
was
funny. That wow, you might have just gotten like I look at interviews and I take certain quotes that folks have said and I write them down like just quotes or sayings that just really stood out. And you just made the list, man. A religious experience.
it was
That
a religious experience. You know, it's undisputable. Like just the fluidity and the amount of control in his body and like when to release and when to let out and all of it. It's like if you dropped if you dropped a drop of water on a tree or a plant, and you watch that path, will take the line of least resistance. It'll be the most efficient way down to the bottom of the plant. That's what it was like watching Tony. There was no extraneous movements. There was no energy when it wasn't needed. He exploded when he had to, and he ended it right when it needed to end. And then he would let go and he would move into something else. It was just butter. The whole thing was just butter. It was, and so I'm flabber. I'm like, let me know. I'm still stumbling for words. Like it was like that. And then secondary to that, of course, was Tommy. Tommy was an absolute, and still is, he's an absolute wizard. Tommy's
nothing but amazing things about him. Just someone, Durant says it was hell, Dean. It was hell. Talking about the sparring experience and
the Buck-Buckin, yeah. Oh, they enjoyed it. They wanted to kick your ass.
It was hell, but back to yeah, like that's just, man, like, but I've heard nothing but just incredible things about Master Tommy, and yeah, and you right there before the two of them, just watching them move must have been, like you said, a religious experience.
Well, that was it. So like Tony would come to the club. Like, well, when I was living with Tony, the drill was, I forget the days. It was like Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or something. We always traveled from Tondo. I would pick him up at work, or I would pick him up at the house, and then we would traverse back into Benondo. And then usually it was like a 7 o'clock start. But I mean, we would do 7 o'clock start. Sometimes we didn't finish till midnight. You know, it was really intense training. It was full on. Hold on, where was I going with that train of thought? Yeah, and yeah. And outside of that, it was meeting Tony down at the pier. So the nights that we weren't doing at the Benondo gym, I would meet him at Pier 4 because he was supervisor for Super Ferry. I think he worked for Sapisho as well. But he had a little office down there, and a lot of time he was sleeping in it. And I would go down. I would go, hey, Josh, you come down here at whatever, 6 or 7 o'clock. We're going to train. Okay. So I go down, I get into his office, and you can't even make this shit up. It's like an empty room full of dust, like nothing in it except like an old 80s desk and like an old school typewriter. And then a couple like training sticks. Actually, this stick right here is one of the sticks from that desk.
Wow.
That he gifted to me. And this one as well. This stick up here is from the docks. No. So anyways, I talk in a stream of consciousness. I'm gonna jump all over the place, Dean. So Kwan, yeah. So we go to the docks, but Tony would be sleeping in his chair. So I'd open the door, and then I'd see like almost like a bird nestled into his feathers, and he'd be sleeping. But he always kind of like woke up like, woo, like you don't want to wake him up because I was scared he's gonna like hit me or something. So I'd always yell at the door like, hey, Tony. And okay, Josh, let's go. Josh, we're going to train now. Let's go. And then at that point maybe it's getting dark out, and then we would go out into the dock area, where all the shipping containers are. And we would practice, but he was very explicit in his concern, like, don't pull a knife here, and we're not training knife here, because all those dock workers have shanks and knives, and what they'll do is they'll start to spy on us. And they did. A couple old dirty old wizards were come around the shipping containers, and they'd see what we were doing. But he was adamant. We would go off in a corner somewhere in between like stacks of shipping containers, those 40-foot, 20-foot shipping containers. And we'd go in behind one where no one can see us. There'd be like just enough light coming off like one of those like dock lights. Okay. And then we would train in there. But it was always, we would do like a Sparidaga or whatever, where we're doing solo baston. But he was always adamant, like no knife fighting at the docks, no knife fighting. So between training at the docks and then going to Tommy's gym, we trained every night. That was the program. We trained like basically 7 days a week. So I got lots of bees around here, and then yeah, and then.
Wow, wow, wow.
And
That's
we would, you know, because I was living with him, we would first thing in the morning, we would get up, and Tony liked to get up early, and that part of Tondo was really congested. But there was a couple blocks away, there was a polytechnical school. I think it's called Don Bosco, and it was on the corner of Herbosa and forgive me, San Jose Street or something. But you go out and be like early morning, so a little bit cooler, and you know, be old men like rolling bocce balls, and him and I would walk out and we'd go out, and often we would go train like in the courtyard of the polytechnical school, or we'd go for a walk and get coffee in Pandicel, and then we would go back and we would train in his house, and that's kind of that was the cycle that we kind of got into. Was like we would train in the morning, I'd meet him at the pier in the afternoon, and then I would come back in the evening, and then we just cycled that.
That's a lot. I mean, so you were actually staying with him. How long did you stay with him?
It was about it was 3 years, and I stayed with him maybe 7 to 8 months out of the year for 3 years.
So you lived
That
over.
was
You were in PH for 3 years straight.
so what the pattern was. I would go to PH. I would come to Canada and I would make my money. I was a young man at the time. I was involved in forestry, so it was a seasonal job, and I made really good money. So it allowed me to make the money to
Oh,
go
perfect.
back to the Philippines, and then I could stay and finance myself, and you know, and help Tony and his family, and that was my priority as well. You know, so yeah, I was able to come here, make the money, go back, and then I would stay there for whatever it was. I mean, depending the year, maybe like 6 to 8 months out of the year.
That's wow. But that's perfect. Like you had a job that was seasonal in conjunction with going over there. You couldn't plan that better. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very fortunate marriage of events that took place.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, you're young, so you didn't have any, thing tying you down, of course, right?
That's
So you
right. Yeah, yeah. Better to do it at that point, right?
I know, I know, I know. It's so funny. I'm kicking myself in the butt, but I was when Mark Wiley's book came out, and I saw Edgar and Illustrisimo, and I'm just thinking like I gotta go over there. I mean, but yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But here, we got another comment. When are you gonna come to the PhD? We'll bring you around. We'll take you to Tondo and drop you off. No, just kidding. And then the Biondo Gym, and then have a meal in Chinatown nearby where we used to go after training. Also see the former headquarters of Hangzhou in Manila. Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
who's that? Who's that? That sounds
that's
familiar.
Duran.
That's
Did you
Durant.
meet Duran when you were over there?
I don't know. Maybe I did, but I
Oh, I'm
mean,
sure you did. I'm sure you did.
possibly. Like my window of time, the extensive window of time was 1998 to 2007.
Oh, he was around then. And matter of fact, he
Yeah.
was a pivotal part. I mean, like he trained. I mean,
Is Durant his first name?
he's a little humble, in
Durant,
my
if I know
opinion.
you, I apologize now because my memory is
No, I'm
horrific.
sure you saw his face, but he's a little humble. Like to me, like he was one of the original guys. I wish he should actually be in the forefront. That's just my opinion.
Right, right.
But
Yeah,
like he was there for Topher and then went to Diego. I mean, he's
right,
and his knowledge,
right.
like matter of fact, I've tried to get him to do lessons, but yeah. But
Yeah,
he's a fantastic guy. I'm sure you met him.
I'm sure we crossed paths. Like it's a tight circle, and if he was there during that window of time that I was around, we have to have had contact. There's no way that we didn't. So if he's listening, just I apologize, man. I got old man
So,
brain. Like I'm 50.
Grant, do you remember seeing a tall white guy wandering around Tondo?
Right? Oh man.
See,
Then
here it is.
and then sorry, and then
86,
pardon me.
86 to present, 1986 when he was there.
Okay, yeah, he's been around for a long time.
I mean, yeah. Like
he precedes me by like a decade, right? Like
yeah, he's a wealth of information. Yeah, absolutely. He's kind of saying it all,
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going back and forth, and when you do, of course, you're staying with GM Tony,
Yeah.
Now, are you primarily just training at the gym in GM Tony? Are you going? Yeah, you mentioned Roberto Morales.
Yeah,
You?
there was a crossover because basically, like, to be frank, like Tony was the nucleus, right?
Yeah.
So everybody who was involved in and around illustration at that time kind of was coming around Tony or coming around Lunetta.
It was a
And so
place to stop by, right? That was a
pardon?
place to stop. It was a place to stop by, right?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, Lunetta was a place to stop by, but I mean, just in terms of connection and like having a home base, that was Tony D, right? So yeah, I felt like Tony was kind of the home base for people who had been training Illustrissimo or were students of Tatang in whatever
Mm.
capacity. Um, yeah, so at that time, like in I'm gonna call it like early 2000. I'm gonna nail it here. I'm gonna say 2002.
Okay.
The group was really strong, and we had other practitioners. I don't know if he's still active. We had a guy coming over from France. His name was Serge Gillette. Another noteworthy practitioner. He's also a talented guy. I think was Shamin Hake from UK or Ireland.
He's still, I understand, he's still active.
Yeah, he's a great
Yeah.
guy, and he's very talented. And I mean, Shamim, great guy, absolutely. So anyway, point being is there we kind of had, how do you see it, within Tony's group, we had a number of like international guys who were kind of representing, if you will. And then within that, or outside of that, like locally, like within Manila, we had our Tondo group and our
Mm.
Binondo group, and it was like shit. I remember one year, like we had a whatever we have barbecues every Sunday and close to Pier 4. But then this particular Sunday, we're all training and having brandy and frying fish or whatever we're doing. And I just looked at Tony. I'm like, wow, like look what you've done, man. Like there is a strong group right now, strong contingent.
Mm.
And that's how I remember the group under Montoni. Very strong and very together, very concentrated.
You're talking about early 2000s, right?
That year in particular, I'm going to say was, and it carried on, but I'm going to say I first noticed how strong the group was becoming in 2002.
That makes sense because from what I understand, like Mark White's book came out, and now everybody's seeing it, and now you're seeing this influx of Westerners going over to the Philippines, and I think Mark White's book, you know, is due to
Absolutely,
that.
like yeah, Mark Wiley is like he's also a corner, like he's also a peg on the line
Yeah.
that helped all the exposure for people to go, and not only Illustrissimo, but like his books are amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
Showcasing
he,
all the
yeah,
other practitioners and whatnot, and
yeah,
um, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
I don't
and I
think he
think
gets
like
enough credit, honestly. I don't think he gets enough credit
what do you
for
know
the
what do you know what
influx of Westerners.
well, that's just it. But I think like Mark, like I don't never met the man, but from what I understand is like he's confident where he comes from and his
Mhm.
history, and I think therefore when you get people who are like confident and understand where they come from, they don't they're not seeking validation or recognition or anything of this nature just purely because they know what they are. So, but at that time, yeah, you're correct. There was an influx of people coming over, but
Mhm.
specifically because I can only speak through my own experience and my own truth that during that window of time, they like Tony didn't really teach anybody else. Tony had his foreign students, and then that was it. Here's an example. So there's another gentleman, another Canadian guy who came over, and we're very close, very good friend of mine, and he's another guy. We could do a whole podcast just with me and this guy, Kevin Hulen,
I'm sorry,
and
what's the last name? Kevin?
Hulen. It's
Oh,
Norwegian, but you spell it like Haaland, but you
okay.
pronounce it Hulen. And he's from Vancouver. So here's an example. So at the time that Kevin arrived into Philippines to train, he was seeking out Illustrissimo specifically. And he went to Luneta to seek Montoni. And at that time, I was in Philippines, but I was living in Mindanao. My wife at the time was pregnant with my first son, and we're living in Mindanao. We're living in Camiguin Island. But I get this phone call one day from Monk Tony. Hey, oh Josh, I got this guy here from Canada. His name's Kevin. Is it okay if I train him? I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what are you talking about? You don't have to ask me for permission. But Tony promised me that he would never teach another Canadian. That they all got to funnel through me.
Oh,
That's
wow.
just how he was. And I was like, listen, man, like
What an honor.
I appreciate the thing, but Master Tony, you do whatever you want. I'm happy that you got another student like,
Yeah.
and as long as you think he's a good guy, then train him. And as
Yeah.
it turns out,
Wow.
Kevin's an exceptional
But
human
just
being.
for him, this guy, this magnitude, like calling you upon you and asking you, like, that's pretty incredible. Just to back up a bit,
Sure.
you mentioned there was an influx of Westerners going there, and you're saying that was, generally speaking, the majority and the bulk of the students he was teaching?
I think what had happened was like prior, and that was why I had such a hard interview process. Was that they Illustrissimo, the guys, whatever, Tony Tupper, whoever it was, Lunetta. Uh, if you understand where you could find Illustrissimo, you went to Lunetta, and so they were encountering guys who were coming, and they would come over for whatever a weekend or a week, and then they would kind of exploit them or exploit their techniques, and they would go home and be like, yeah, I trained Illustrissimo and I know this and I know that. So I think what it did for a lot of the older guys is it put a bad taste in my mouth. And
No,
in
it
particular,
dated them. Yeah.
I can only speak for Tony. So Tony became very hyper vigilant with who he trained, because Tony's a very like integral guy. Like he's a very humble guy, and his honor means a lot. And if you try to exploit him, man, he'll never talk to you again.
That's
That's
just
He's
terrible.
very stubborn guy. So they were experiencing that. So I think prior around when I was going, like a number of people, there was individuals coming to Linda like seeking illicit smoke because they heard the stories,
You're
and
right.
then they closed the door, they shut it down, and that's why, like, say when I was training with Tupper, and they're like, okay, let's go to. I had an in through Tommy to meet Tony, and I told you, like, Tony didn't teach me anything for a week. He just looked at me. He was
Oh,
like, "Who's
yeah,
this guy?"
understood.
He was
Yeah.
like, "Who's it? Who is this? Who's this tall white monkey from Canada?" And then, and if whatever, we connected, and I went him over, and then the rest was history. But anyway, to further that, I think that is what was happening for a while anyway, and for those guys.
What about like local? I mean, obviously, I know there was Duran and other folks, but was there a good local group that was in existence as well? Local students?
Absolutely. The group back then was super strong and super tight, and
Okay.
there was a crossover between the I'll call the Lunetta group and then the Banana
Mhm.
group, and then there were some guys that showed up. Sorry if I'm crowding my phone. I
No,
just
no.
can't. I showed up between the Kwan the they were living in Manila, and they would access the Banano Club, but they didn't come to Luneta. So you had three factions. You had Tondo, you had Luneta, which is essentially Tondo, but you had outsiders come there, and then you just had randoms that had like a way in, if you will. But the core matrix of the group back then was I mean, the acronym is Tony had an acronym for his system to separate himself from other people claiming to be Illustrismo. Well, that's Cairo. So it's College Illustrismo, Repetition, or Hinel. So within that title, if you will, or that teaching, there was a group of us that we were trained there for 7 years, right? We were all training partners for 7 years. We would train in Luneta. We would go into Tondo. We go to places that, like, anyway, we have barbecues on Sundays and drink. Like, we were very, very tight, very tight group.
Wow, how neat, man. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that's awesome. It's just hearing that, and I just hate hearing that those guys being exploited. I mean, guys coming over, and I mean, no wonder why then. I mean, certainly understandable why they were putting up definitely guards up, right? I mean, um, took advantage. Yeah, that's terrible, terrible, Dren. Uh-oh, we have a frozen Josh. Oh, you're back. Okay.
Okay, good. That's what happens. I told you we're on the Starlink, so
Oh yeah,
we're
you get okay. Yeah, no worries, no worries.
yeah.
Again, I'm a pro at dealing with technical
I
difficulties.
love
So
it.
no
So we're also, I'll let you know, we're in the craft beer capital of Canada.
craft beer capital. Okay.
So as a result, I've become a bit of a craft beer connoisseur. So I'm just gonna grab a craft beer out of my fridge.
Oh my God, sure.
Yeah.
No worries.
I'd pass you one through, but I know it won't reach you.
I would love one if you could do that.
Oh shit, man. Yeah. So the group was really strong at that time, and you know, and you know, to be totally fair and honest, like there was after my son was born, you know, I immigrated out, and I've been hyper focused on raising my kids for 20 years. And there was a few years where I was just kind of out of touch with the group and what was going on in Manila. And then, you know, and I feel like after Monk Tony passed, you know, some divisions had happened within the association or KI, and you know, and it breaks my heart because you know I love all those guys. You know, they're all wonderful people, and it's easy to get excited. And I hope that you know we can at some point be all our greater selves and just put our differences aside and just understand we love whatever we love about KI, and our influence is our influence, and we're all just trying to we love it for whatever reason, or I think we all love it for the same thing. We all know what we know, and we share what we know, and like that's the end of it, right? Like so
So
you
what
know,
was that? Okay, so last year you went there. That looks pretty good.
it's very frothy. I'm sorry I'm doing this to you.
No, I think it's great. No worries.
Oh, okay,
So
good.
what was
I'm
last
a
year?
very casual individual, so
Hey, we're pretty flexible here. Pet friendly, family friendly, beer
well, that's good.
friendly, whatever. So what was last year you went over there?
Last year I was over, I think it was 2009.
2009.
So
Okay. And he passed
it's
2011.
pardon me.
He passed 2011 or 2012.
Tony passed. Shit, man. I thought it was 2014,
Oh, I could be
but
off.
I could be wrong. I thought the anniversary of his death was last year, and it was 7 years. So maybe we're coming up on year 8. So maybe it was no. It was much later than that. It was much later. So yeah. So I'm gonna say 7 minus 2000. I'm gonna say it was 2016. And don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. It's my memory. So but it
You know
yeah.
what? No, you're correct. I'm mistaking it with GM Topper.
Yeah, Tuper passed much
Yeah,
much
yeah,
early, and bless his heart,
yeah.
man.
Duran will know. He'll
Yeah,
he'll correct us.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was him.
Yes.
Yeah. You're right
Hey,
though.
what?
It was yeah. So then so okay. So all right. So you're not going back there, but obviously, I mean, you're still training, and I
Oh yeah,
mean,
I'm actually. It's funny because I had taken a bit of a hiatus for a few years, like because Tony passed away, and then like not even 3 weeks later, my student passed away. A guy who I'd been training since I first came back in 2007. So I kind of got spooked because you know there's some thoughts out there that maybe the transmission is cursed. Let's just put it that way. And I don't want to get too heavy into the esoteric side, but I was exposed to that heavily when I was living there. And part of coming back to Canada allowed me to decompress for that and just kind of get based in a more logical, pragmatic world. But the world over there is completely different. And I was fully immersed in that. And I mean, that's a whole other podcast. I can talk about that shit. But come on, what was I talking about? So yeah, so Tony had passed away, and then like a month later, my student passed away. So Tony had given me the full transmission, from what I understand. He told me he gave me everything that he knew, and then my first student, I transmitted everything to, and then Tony passed away, and then weeks later, my student passed away,
oh
and
man,
both untimely, like both very young, like full of vigor, high, like humble, like articulate, like just lovely people that just like passed. And so I just kind of I didn't know what to make of it. So I stopped teaching, and I stopped practicing for a few years because it fucking scared me. I got weird about it. And yeah, and then I started to pick it up again. I mean, it never left me. I got more active again, and my
Mm.
daughter was getting older, and she showed interest, so I started training her, and now here I am again, and I'm active, and I have a group, and like
Which is
I'm
great.
good. I'm
Just yeah.
practicing it.
Hey, I
So
would love to do a pod. Well, you brought up, I would love to do a podcast on that, like that difference in life over there and there. I think that'd be really neat to cover, so folks maybe can hear from you, like what the differences are and the effect of like when you came back, and you know what I mean. I think that'd be really neat.
well, it was always hard coming home. It was the logic is that you would come home and it would be easy because you're coming home. But after being there, I'd come home and it was highly stressful. Even I was here for like 4 months. It was hard for
Wow.
me, and then I would go back and I'd be like, oh, my heart would open up and I'd be training and I'd just be open again, and the
Then you
whole
come
vibe.
back to the Western, and you're like, you know,
Pardon me.
then you come back to the Western Hemisphere, and you're wound up, right?
Yeah, you get wound up, and there's just a different type of openness and loving. I feel like that's happening over there. Like, sometimes we would, the group we'd leave Luneta,
Yeah.
and like in Canada, you wouldn't see you wouldn't see all your brothers like draping over each other and loving each other and being close. Like we would basically be hugging each other. Me, Montoni, like whoever else was there, we would be walking down the highway, like our arms draped over each other, like we all loved each other, and then we go get the jeepney and we go away. I don't have that connection here. I haven't had that since I was in the Philippines.
Oh,
There's a deeper connection, I feel like, with the culture or the people, like they love so much and they're just so open, and
well, that's a good thing. That's going to be an excellent podcast. I'm going to tell you because over here, the grind over here, it doesn't allow for that, that close knit, you know what I mean, where you live. I mean, generally speaking, where you live close, and there's just, I think that's worth talking about. And so I can, without obviously experience what you went through, but just by hearing you, I could definitely get insight to what you're saying about that, how you miss that.
yeah, I first immigrated back. I was back in Canada for a short time in 2005 with my first wife at the time and my son, and we had only been back in Canada for maybe, I don't know, a year and a few months. And we were like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. We're like, we're going back to Mindanao. Like, we're going back to the jungle. Like, we're out of here. Like, this is like, it was actually like destroying my soul being in Canada.
Wow.
And I went back, and then we had some health issues and whatnot. And it's a long story. I had to go back to Philippines. Things kind of didn't work out. We ended up immigrating back to Canada, and then my daughter was only 1 year old at the time. But anyway, I ended up raising my kids. I ended up raising my kids on my own. So I'm just kind of finishing that chapter. That was 20 years of raising my kids. And my daughter just graduated. She's off to university, full
Oh,
scholarship.
nice.
Already moved out. So anyway, I'm entering a new phase. And I'm sorry, I'm talking in a stream of consciousness. It's not always
No,
connected.
no worries.
But we're anyway, I'm heading back. I'm going back to PH here shortly, and that my heart's in the Philippines, and it always has been. But yeah, it's just it's a different world over there. I want to speak specifically on one experience that I had with Tony Jago living in his house. So I remember the first year I went there, and it's a very simple place, right? The square footage is like, man, maybe it was 500 square feet at best. And I'm talking two levels. So maybe 200 square feet and 200 square feet up and down. And I think he had like one, two, three, he had like five people living in there. And there was one big bedroom upstairs. Well, he had his bedroom with Jillian, with his wife, and then they had another room. And they're like, okay, Josh, you can stay in that room. And I'm like, no. Like, you have kids. If the kids stay in the room, I'll stay in. No. They're very insistent. Like, you stay in the room. That's your room. And the rest of the family slept downstairs on the concrete floor on cardboard sheets. So it was like a cardboard box. They'd open it up and they'd all just sleep on cardboard, if you can imagine that. And so I felt really horrible about that, but they were very insistent. So I was like, okay, I'll stay in the room. So anyway, we started really getting into the training, and we were training all the time. And like Tony was a big advocate on Okay, Josh, faster, faster, faster. It was all about the Amara series, like cut, 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 move, 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 like up, 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 like faster, faster, faster. So what happens is your fast twitch is just lit, like you're just
Mm.
your whole nervous system is switched on. And I was a young man at the time. I was only 25. I'm 50 now. I still think I'm fucking fast, but like at 25, I think I'm sure I'm way faster. So anyway, so like I remember like staying in his there was one at one point we were deep into the train. I was living with him for a couple months, and there was the bed that I was staying on. So for about 5 days, I started to have these dreams where I was like fighting uh, opponents that I couldn't defeat. I would fight them with a stick. I'd fight them with a bolo. I'd fight them with Isparidaga. I'd fight them with a double bolo. And I would fight and fight and fight and fight, and I couldn't finish them. And I would be coming off the bed about 6 inches, 8 inches, literally, because my nervous system was so lit. I was bolting off of my bed. And every morning, I go downstairs, fucking sweating, gross. Tony would always be smiling. How was your sleep last night?
Oh, jeez,
I was
that's
like, what was like? I had a horrible sleep, and I tell him, oh, I did this and this and this, and he look at me and he's like, and he just kind of smile and nod his head. Okay, Josh, let's go to the pier. We're out of here.
oh,
And then
that's
every day for 5 days it would repeat and repeat and repeat. And then I learned later that Tony had the same dreams when he was
we're under.
a tongue. And I don't know, I can't say for sure, but I think maybe Romy Mahakapal had them. I'm not sure if Yuli Romo had them. So there was something in that. I believe there's something in the transmission of Illustrissimo that is esoteric and that is not of this plane. And I've seen it, I've tasted it, and I've smelt it, and I can comment on it. And there's a greater force, there's a greater teaching out there, and it isn't just meeting someone in the park and like you know
Yeah,
doing the
yeah,
one two
right. And
three
just
four.
moving around. I mean, right. And
Yeah,
Renee was saying when Dean stayed with me, he slept on cardboard.
right. Oh man.
Oh
But
gosh.
that story in particular, I thought I would share, and I can
No,
extrapolate
I
that.
love it. No, 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 no. Thank you. Yeah, that's wow. Yeah, that's like Jedi stuff, man. That's
Well,
like,
yeah, it was dreamscape stuff, if you will, and even to this day, I find when I coach or when I teach, I feel like there's a spirit that comes through me, and that it's not me. I
mm,
honestly don't think it's me teaching. Like I think it's Tony, right? Because even when I start to teach somebody, they're like, "Hey, like, why are you talking like that?" Even my voice changed right now a little bit in this interview. I have a little bit of an intonation that's not my normal voice. I there is something else. There is something through the transmission in Illustrissimo. I don't know what it is. People can do their own research. There's all sorts of stories and information out there. You can research it and find it. Illustrissimo's uncle. Have you heard of the Mount Banahal Guru?
so not Regino, the one who was out in California, is other uncles that were in the Philippines.
Pardon me. Can you say that again?
So which uncle, not Regino, who was in
No, there's a. I forget his first name, but there was an uncle. He was also from Bantayan Island. But he
Mauricio?
no, not Malaysia. He's I don't know if he practiced Eskrima, but his story isn't about Eskrima. But he was the brother of Malaysia, and he was uh, a spiritual guru, if you will, and he had a following of 30,000 people, and he lived at the bottom of Mount Banahal, which is actually in northern southern Luzon. And there's all sorts of stories about what that guy could do, metaphysical things. And you got to take into account too, like we can further the Mount Banahao thing, but like you think about the name Illustrissimo. Illustrissimo is not that's not indigenous. That's not Visayan or Tagalog. That's Spanish. So Illustrissimo means to be enlightened. That's the enlightened ones. So the whole clan Illustrissimo, the Spanish gave them that name. So you look, you had the uncle. The uncle
Interesting.
had a following of 30,000 people. You have the stories of Malaysia. You have the stories of Illustrissimo. You have all these stories within that clan. There's something there that
Wow.
isn't
This is first time hearing
documented,
some of
isn't
this
really
stuff.
fully explored. You get little bits and pieces of it, but I think in the West, when you start to talk esoterics, people get weird, or they're like, "Oh, that's bullshit," or "That doesn't happen." But like,
Hmm.
it does. It's real, And I feel like it's a collective. It's a collective thinking. Like for myself, when I was there, I didn't feel like I was a part of that for a long time, but after spending a number of years there, the lines started to blur, and I started to
Mm.
see things that I'm like, I started almost questioning my own mind. Like, did I just see that? Like, did that just happen?
Am I crazy?
Like, say
Like,
I walk through the Vasoria market, which is a long market full of people, right? And I see some weird old guy on the corner, like, looking at me. There's all sorts of weird guys looking at me. There's some weird person, Filipino, whatever. He's selling mangoes or whatever. He's being, but he looks at me, and I feel it. And then 2 blocks later, I see him there again. And then 2 blocks later, I see him there again, looking at me. It's like, okay, like that can't be the same guy, right? Like, it's just not possible. The world, there's a whole other, and I'm sorry, I'm not articulating well, but there's a whole other side to what's happening, specifically within Southeast Asian martial arts, Filipino martial arts, that is misunderstood and is a reality. Right?
no, I'm loving what you're just talking about. Matter of fact, I think there's some clear. I think they've identified the uncle. We got hey, Guru Alex. Guru Alex is saying, I don't want to do an abomination. Agapito Illustrissimo.
That's right. That's right. That's him. Yep.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's right. I'm sorry, I forgot the name, but he's correct. But there's a book. You can find the book. I think it's either the Mount Banahao or Banahao Guru. There's a whole book written about this guy.
Duran's saying right here about how it's a sacred and mystical place to us.
Yes.
I gotta write
Yes.
this down. I want this is so. And you're saying there's a book.
There is a book. Yep.
Okay.
Shit, man, I can't remember the gentleman's name.
If you
Philippe.
happen to do, if you don't, I mean, just if you do remember, let me know. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
look it
I
up
can.
too, though. I'll just put it in there, and hopefully, maybe it'll
Yeah.
populate some authors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. God, why does it keep popping on and off? Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that this phone is working.
Yeah. No, you're good to go. I mean, the beer's coming in nice and clear. I'm just kidding.
So hey, I wanted to show you this baston here. This baston. This is actually
Uh-oh. Just as he said that.
to me from Montoni, I think like 2003. He already had it for about 20 years.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, I just put a couple things on the wall that were special to me.
Sure.
Of course, that old Chris blade, and then this stick here. So Tony, when he was in his office in the pier, he would get sticks. I don't know if you can see it, but see how there's fishing
Yeah, I do.
wire,
Yeah.
and then there's a bit of fishing wire here.
Okay.
So what he would do is he would get sticks, and then he would try to balance them out with fishing line. So they felt more like blades.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then this one too. This one's old. If you look on the butt end of that, I don't know if you can see it. There's a bunch of nails. There's nails hammered in there. All these canes are retired, of course, but so these were all sticks that came from his office in Pier 4.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, and then this one in particular, I really like just because node spacing is so tight. Yeah, and this was like one of his training canes, and he said that this cane was from Mindanao, and it because of the tight spacing was a lack of water, so it was a dry area in Mindanao. So the OI, the rattan or the yantok, what do you want to call it, the nodes are really tight.
Okay.
So the more moist you are, the more moisture you have, or the more viscous the environment, the longer the node spacing.
Oh,
And
the
more soft the constitution of the stick. If you come into a dry area, the OI is struggling for water, so the node spacing is tight.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's a stronger stick. So anyway, I just thought I'd share those with you. That's those are
Yeah,
my personal collection. I don't train with those. That just stays put.
yeah, for good reason. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So, so you're active. So, I mean, you're active now. I mean, your IG. You're putting out vids and content there. Are you just on IG for now?
For now, I mean, I've had people request like doing, oh, can you do a YouTube that or a this, that, and the other thing. It's like I would love to. I just need help, man. I'm an old man now, and I'm not a tech guy. So
Yeah, everything
I'm
frustrating.
proficient, and I can throw a couple like IG clips up, and you know, yeah, if people bite on it and they see something they like
Hmm.
sure, ask a question. I'm more than happy to help and share with whatever, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I mean, but I mean, you're putting out there. Matter of fact, for those who didn't see the intro vid, let's play it again. And this, you were just doing this yesterday, right?
That was just last night. Yeah.
Last night. So Pluma.
Well, I can't see it on my end, but you can see it on
Oh,
yours.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It was a long. It was a 12-second one. It was on the longer end. The ones you
Oh,
sent me.
I think yeah, I think the initial was it was an attack coming from Serrata, say Angolo from Serrata, the opponent, and then you want to intercept with a you're going to cut right up into the arm and then Pluma off the top. And I
It
did
looked
the
like you were
movement
doing
wide
Pluma.
just so people
Okay.
could see the movement. I have critics that would say tighten the fulcrum,
Yeah.
but you get the gist of it, right? And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Look good. Yeah. So,
yeah.
so what did, so as far as your like, your teaching and all that, I mean, are you an absolute, like, you're basically giving your students what was handed down to you from GM Tony? I mean, is that pretty much?
Pretty much. I don't deviate from the syllabus. Only because, well, I mean, okay, how do I articulate this correctly? Um, I teach classic illustrissimo, and there's within that, I think I do things that weren't taught to me, but I think it adheres to the principle. And Tony always said that it's just like as long as you're adhering to the principle, you're doing the thing. You know, we're none of us are going to look the same because we're all
Body type.
taller, fatter, wider,
Sure, sure.
and because of our physical attributes, we have a tendency to express or favor different techniques. So I get ridiculed sometimes. They're like, oh, that's bullshit or this. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine, but I always start with the basics, and only because in my limited knowledge, from what I've experienced to what Monk Tony and Tommy have taught me, I haven't found anything that can counter it, if you will.
From there, and
There
so
and yeah.
I got that.
Does that
So
make sense? Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, no, no, no. For your training with Tommy, so I mean, obviously you had interaction when you were over in the Philippines, and now that you're in Canada, a couple times you guys met up.
Sorry, can you say that again?
So I know you guys had interaction when you were in the Philippines, Master Tommy, but now that you're in Canada, you guys met up a few times.
Yes, absolutely. We've met up a few times. He's like, and kudos to him because it's always on his clock because I feel like I'm the one visiting Vancouver unannounced and often in remote areas far away from his life and his family. But he is always generous and he always makes the pilgrimage and he always finds me and we always train a little bit in a parking lot and he always pays for coffee and biscuits and like Tommy is probably the most humble, soft-spoken guys you'll ever meet, and probably maybe one of the most talented martial artists you ever meet. Tommy, in my mind, is like if we're all in the path, he might be the guy that I would say is closest to mastering himself. If you know,
Interesting.
he's so humble and so straight, and it's like I wish I could be like Tommy.
Mm.
Maybe in my next life.
I've heard nothing but stellar things about him.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously he was made the heir, right? I mean, for good
that's it.
reason. He's just
Well,
so reclusive and low key, right?
Well, that's just it. He's so low key. His skill set is like he's peerless as far as I can see. My skill set can't touch Tommy's skill set. No way. And then I think just with his spirituality and just his conditioning as a human being, he's a special, he's an anomaly, man. He's like one in a million. He really
I've
is.
heard nothing. I mean, people reference that. I mean, like even Dave Gould, Lamego guy. I mean, even said that he's like special. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
That and just watching his movements from Brandon's old video collection and yeah, I mean, pretty intense, right? And Tom hits so hard.
oh, it's yeah, like Tommy's bullets, like stop it. Like his Amara series, the way that he's able to cut and link cuts together with both hands, like going from left to right, whatever it is, like thrust cut systems or whatever his combination is, it is super tight, and he can counter anything that's coming in with the appropriate footwork and be in and out of range, and like you're done. Like he is the epitome of freaking talent, dude. He is so good. He is so
Yeah,
good.
it's
I
too
got.
bad he's so low key. I mean, like
Well, this
it's,
this is the thing, man. I find that these super high level guys, they're usually the most quiet and most humble, because I think you
mm,
have to have that set of like personal or spiritual attributes to get to that place. You can't get to that level being whatever it is,
yeah, a
ego
cocky
bound, ego
jerk
bound, right?
or
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just flying off the cuff here, but and I don't. I mean, I don't know about Tommy DeTong. Like, he's just he's a special creature. And all I know is like anytime I could message him right now, he would respond in like 5 seconds. Boom.
Mm.
He's always there. He's always available. Um, just great human, and shit, man. That the cocktail trading post in on Juan Luna Street. Like, oh my god, did you know that Tommy had a pet python?
No, I did not. No,
Yeah,
no.
so that area of the creek, reticulated pythons are indigenous to that area, and so that the creek ran right by their t-shirt shop. So I don't know how they got the python. I think it probably creeped up the bank and somehow got into the building. So Tommy, he had this freaking python, this like fucking like 15-foot python, like
15 feet?
in this cage in the back office of the t-shirt shop. And like, Tommy, like, what are you feeding this thing? He's like, chicken heads. I buy chicken heads. And he would go to the market and buy whatever, a kilo of chicken, just feed chicken heads to the snake. But my God, man, the guy is that,
15
that
feet. I'd be like, no.
no, that individual is another guy who would be great to have on a podcast. Unfortunately, I feel like
Tried with KC. I mean, I've got Louis Lindo on. That's about as close as I've
yeah.
gotten with that crew out there.
Well,
Yeah.
that's it. And Louis Lindo is another guy. I mean,
Oh
he
yeah,
has a lot of experience with Tommy and with Kenneth Coe and stuff.
yeah, no,
And
yeah.
Louis, man, what a wealth of knowledge.
Oh my God, I know
He
the
has
C
so much
lot,
FMA.
the compo. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
So there's a lot of it's interesting. Like we're a tiny, like, per square footage, we're like a very like small province. Like there's not a lot of people here in British Columbia. Like that,
mm,
you know what I mean? There's a lot of square footage, but like pound for pound, there's so many people practicing FMA here. You know? Yeah.
no, you guys. I mean, wow. So how far are you like from Vancouver? How far is it?
I'm about 4 hours from here.
It's 4 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're out in the jungle right now. Hang on. Let's just see here.
Look at that,
Yeah.
man.
I'm on 300 acres right now. And yeah, I live in the bush. I have a well water. I have 2 springs. Yeah,
That's awesome, though.
we're getting ready for the zombie apocalypse, man.
I know it's oh my God, that's all there, man. Don't even get me. That's a whole nother,
That's a whole
man.
other thing, right? Get out of the city. Have a line to get out of the city when you need to
You
get.
know what I mean? Oh my God, I know. So yeah, I mean it's up to you whether you want to show anything or not. I always leave that up to the guest. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I don't know. I mean, I sent you those videos. I wasn't able to see them. I mean, there's
You
not a
can't
whole lot
see them.
to show. I mean, if your viewers were able to see those videos, that's what I was doing last night.
Yeah, I could definitely post that. You know what we could do? Let's set up another interview.
Sure.
Where let's set up where you can actually we'll have more time because I kind of I gave you like 2 days notice of this. I had an opening, so I didn't give you the most time.
Yeah,
So
I appreciate it. Yeah.
yeah, no worries. But let's do another one sooner than later. Like, let me know what you have available. But if we can, let's definitely talk about like what you were mentioning, far as the difference of lifestyle and how when you came back over here, there was a void and how you want to get back there. That compare and contrast for the lifestyles and the effect it had on you when you came over here.
Yes.
Secondly, and then where you could showcase some stuff.
Absolutely. Maybe next time what I can do too is, I mean, if I know that working on the phone is easier, I can set up a stand. I could have one of my students, or I can have Jetta, like my daughter, help out with some demo.
Just yeah, like if they can
Anything,
feed,
right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Man, I'd be more than happy to do that. I love that. I love to share. I like this. I like this community. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me know what works, but let's do a part two. Definitely.
Okay, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Yeah. So what you got to do is just on IG or text, just throw me some days and times like within the few days coming up that work for you that you can get some of your daughter, whoever else, and we'll do it.
Okay, I'll text you when I have an appropriate guy who can kind of like reciprocate the energy. Just because some of the people I'm training with are beginner, and that's good, but it's just nice to have someone who's a little more like fluent. My daughter's good as well. Let's okay, let's do that. Yeah, cool, man.
No,
Thank you
we'll
very
make it
much, Dean.
happen.
I really appreciate the talk, and like it's fun to
Yeah.
share. And hey, man, honestly, what I shared with you is like this much.
That's what I
It's
mean. We got to get you back on sooner than later. So let
yeah.
me know what your next available, like when you can get somebody in there and we'll do it.
Okay, let's do it, Dean. Let's do it.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I'm gonna
Hey,
be
I
in touch.
appreciate you. Thank you very much, Dean, for the opportunity to be on your podcast. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
my pleasure. Happy to
Okay.
have you.
Okay,
We'll be
man.
doing it. All right, be in touch.
Okay, we'll see you in a bit.
Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye now. Bye now. Bye.
Wow, that was awesome. Yeah, man. That guy's got it going on, man. Positive, not negative. Yeah, definitely part two coming up. Yeah, so we'll hopefully he'll get back to me sooner or later, and yeah, we got it going. And we'll hear about the difference in lifestyle, which you touched upon, and demos. All right. So who's next? Well, possibly him. But if it's not him, who is next? Oh my gosh. Got Mike Brewster, serious guy. That's gonna be really interesting. Ray Flower's coming back on. Maya, her third book's out. Who else? Those are probably on the sooner than later list. Yeah, so Ray Floro, Mike Brewster, Maya, and of course, if Josh can get back on, yeah, he'll probably be the first one. But yeah, always posted in that next question. All right, folks, I'll see you next time.